Agnifilo is delivering the great closing argument. He is doing an excellent job. I knew after yesterday, with the prosecution doing a good job as well, that the defense was going to have to come hard or stay home, that they were going to have to come with and pull out all the stops. So with that all being said, he is really, very dramatic, very theatrical, and he's bringing up a lot of valid points. Okay, so let's talk about it. Now, he did get himself into a bit of trouble with the judge because the prosecution complained about some of the points that he made. Basically, they objected to some of the things that he said, and so we're going to get into that. But so let's talk about exactly what the defense is saying. Okay, so first thing he came off to bat with was it's a trial of two trials. A trial told from the prosecutors, and then there's a trial told from the evidence. A person who used drugs, illegal substances, and a person who had a lifestyle, okay, a personality, someone who used illegal substances and who engaged in threesomes. Is this a RICO, is what he said. Now, he said Sean Combs is a self-made, successful black entrepreneur, okay? He's done something that's very hard to do in business, and that is that he has withstood the test of time, businesses that have employed people and made them a family. How many government witnesses say that they were moved by Sean Combs? He starts saying some of the things that the government witnesses actually said in their testimonies. One of them said, he taught me to have a good work ethic. One said he pushed me to be harder, to push harder than I pushed myself. Another one said that it felt like he was at Harvard Business School. And so they all had all of these things to say about Diddy, even though they gave testimony for the prosecution. Most of these people basically said that Diddy either taught them something, inspired them in some way, or helped them to be better than they initially were. Hey, beloved. And so with that all being said, he started off with valid points. Now, he also talked about KK. He talked about one of the people saying that they were, wanted to take their own life when they lost their job working for Diddy. And he talked about how these people loved him, how they were like a family. And then, let me tell you all something. I'll get to that in a minute. He also talked about diversity, equity, and inclusion, which I was kind of shocked to hear because I didn't know he was going to go there. I don't think anybody was expecting that. But he talked about how diversity, equity, and inclusion is something that we talk about right here today in 2025. But basically, he said at the age of 24, Mr. Combs was talking about that in 1993. And that's, in fact, what he was doing when he was hiring people and giving these people jobs. He says the government says that his businesses are a criminal cover. They couldn't tell us the guns were in the safe because, remember, I told you that the agent that testified about the guns basically said that there were guns in the home and they had a room for the guns. And when they asked him about the cabinet that the guns were stored in, they asked him, in fact, if it had been sealed, if it was closed or locked when they got there. He said he didn't know because by the time he got there, the agents had already started, looking through things. So they were like, why did this guy even come to testify? They should have sent the person who was first on the scene. So he brought that back up. Then he says, Jane has a beautiful house. Talking about Jane Doe. He said, I hope she's having a nice day right now in a house that Mr. Sean Combs is paying for. Please pay attention, honey. He was going in. Do y'all hear me? May you have a blessed, may you be blessed. May you and yours be blessed. Thank you. Thank you, Happy Buddha. I appreciate you for your kind words and your contribution to the channel, beloved. Peace, love, and blessings. Now, he says, he hopes that Jane Doe's having a beautiful day in a house that Mr. Combs is paying for. He said that's what Mr. Combs does. He takes care of people. He said, look around the room. You see all of his children here, except the baby. You see all of his children. You see his mother. You see his family. That's because he takes care of people. He takes care of them. And I like the way he started off with the jurors Okay, I want you all to pay attention to the strategy behind all of this. For those of you that have been following my coverage, you remember that I told you that when they had Cassie being cross-examined, before they ever did that, I told you they would get a woman to do it so that it wouldn't come off as bullying if they had to try to poke holes in her story. But not only did they get a woman, they got a woman that was of Cassie's own ethnicity. And I told you how they're very strategic in the way they do everything. This is why they have so many of the attorneys. Each one has a specific task. Well, the reason they had Mark Agnifilo deliver the closing arguments is because he's a native New Yorker. And the people on the jury are people from New York. And so you can look at their faces, some of them, I won't say all, but you can look at some of their faces and see that they resonate with what he's saying resonates with them, okay? And he also thanked them for doing their duty and all of that. I mean, he was being flattering towards them. I just want y'all to pay attention, okay? Now, with that all being said, he says they found Astroglide. So they said, take him down. We found the Astroglide and we found the baby oil. Lock him up. Get him off the streets. There's too much people out here with Astroglide baby oil. He's too dangerous. He was very dramatic. I just want y'all to pay attention, okay? So then he says the crime scene is the bedroom. That's where the crime happened, okay? He said the crime scene's in the bedroom, and I guess the weapons were the Astroglide and the baby oil. Now he says this case is not about Cassie. This case is about money and love. The word love has been used 881 times throughout this case, throughout the testimony, throughout the evidence being presented. They've used the word over 800 times, he says. Now, I don't know who was counting. He says it's about jealousy. Now, he says when Cassie testified, no one challenged her on her testimony. He says we owned the domestic violence. We owned it. Yes, there was domestic violence. He says the issue is domestic violence. This is what Cassie said out of her own mouth. He said Cassie said on the stand that the issue was domestic violence. Now, he said she didn't say that the issue was trafficking. She didn't say the issue was she was trying to run away from freak-offs. She didn't say any of those things. She talked about domestic violence being the issue. And he said if you read the text messages, he said, I'm not going to pull all those text messages out and make you read them, make you look at a long list. I'm not going to do that. He said, but if you remember, and if you had seen all of the text messages, you would have seen some of the most loving, some of the most sweet conversations, especially during their breakup. The text messages that Cassie and Diddy sent one another during their breakup. He said if you'd seen and read those, if you saw the ones that were shown, then you know that the relationship was full of love, even though it was toxic. Now, he talked about Cassie. He said if there is one thing, or he says I'm not going to show the text messages or any charts, because that's what the prosecution did yesterday. They went through so many text messages, they went through so many charts, and it was giving snooze fest again. Even though they made some good and valid points, it was kind of giving snooze fest because that's like the third or fourth time that they've shown us those same text messages, that they've shown us those same charts. And the jurors didn't look impressed, and we clearly didn't look impressed when that part of the testimony was going on. If you remember, I told you all when we came out here for the first break that those things that they were showing was making it kind of boring. Now, it did pick up towards the end, the last 2 hours, and they did make some valid points, and I did give them their credit because I thought they actually did a good job. But the thing about Agnifilo is, to me, his delivery of his closing argument is much more energetic. It's much more theatrical and dramatic, which is what I expect basically a closing argument to be, okay? When I went to school for criminal justice and we had mock trials, that's how we were taught to do it. Because you really want to drive home your point. You want to capture the attention of the jurors. You don't want to bore them and then have them and lose them because their mind is wandering. You don't want to talk in a monotone voice. You don't want to just basically, make them just zone out. So he came off the rip. He was being very dramatic, okay? And like I said, the prosecution complained because they said that one of the things that he spoke about was he told the jurors that they need to ask themselves, why were some of these charges put on Mr. Combs? Why did they charge him for the kidnapping? He said Capricorn Clark, she was basically lying. Now, he didn't call her a lie, but he said that when she told the story, he said when they asked her, did you call Lauren London? She says, possibly, maybe, I might have. He says, when they asked her, was Lauren London on the phone when you called Cassie? She's like, possibly. And then when they asked her, what did you say to Lauren London? She said that she told him that she was afraid, and she was afraid for her life, and she would run from Diddy, but she was scared of the mountain lions. Now, he said, if somebody's got a gun at you, why would you be talking about mountain lions? Okay? He said, why would you be talking about mountain lions? And at the end of the day, he also brought up the fact that she spoke about a car chase. Said there was a car chase. They got there and said she called Cassie at about 5:30. Said Diddy got there about 6:15. And the police officer said he got there at like 8:15. Now, Capricorn Clark said there was a high-speed chase. And they said, how long did it last? She said it seemed like forever, but it was actually only about a minute. But the police officer didn't mention a car chase. He had the due diligence to get the license plate of the vehicle, the black Escalade that he saw, and he said that it traced back to Bad Boy. He said, but the fact that the police officer didn't mention a car chase, Mr. Agnifilo, he said, I'm going to go with what the police officer said. He said, Kid Cudi didn't mention a car chase. He said, do you think Kid Cudi would forget if he was in a car chase? He said, then Capricorn Clark said Diddy had a gun. He said he didn't have a gun. He said the reason she said there was a gun is because she was supposed to be loyal to Cassie. So she had to make it seem as though she was brought there by force. Not that she came there of her own volition. This is literally what he said. I want y'all to pay attention because like I told you all before, one thing that the defense has in their favor is they are so good at poking holes in a story or in testimony, and whether the people are lying or not, they are very good at making it look as though they are. They are very good at casting doubt on the person's testimony. That's what he's doing. He's casting doubt on the testimony of these people that I'm mentioning. Now, he said she didn't want Cassie to know that basically she came there of her own free will. He said there was no kidnapping. He said there was no kidnapping. There was no gun involved. And also, when she said that you could see inside of the house from the street where she was, he said that's a lie. Now, those of you that were watching my live when I showed you Kid Cudi's house at the time, and I went to the exact address and showed it to you online, you too know that's a lie. Because you couldn't see the house from the street. The house was far back. It was secluded. You had to go past the gate, and then you had to walk back to the house. If you all didn't see that, go pull up the video, okay? So he said that was not true. So what he was doing was putting holes in her story so that anything that she said, even the things that she said that may have been true, now that's casting doubt. And all they need is one juror. Okay, because if they can make people believe that she was not telling the whole truth, her entire story could go out the door. Okay? I want you all to pay attention. So with that all being said, he then said, that Cassie was not the only victim. That's what he said. He said Cassie was keeping it gangster. This is what he said. I have it in my notes. He said Cassie wasn't the only victim. Mr. Combs was the victim. He said Cassie was just keeping it gangster. Are y'all hearing this? Are y'all hearing this? He said Cassie was keeping it gangster. Now think about when Cassie threatened Jonathan Oddie and said she would have him murked, and then said that she would have Diddy dig him up and then murk him again, that she would have his body chopped into pieces. This is what he said. She's keeping it gangster. I want y'all to pay attention. This man is good at what he does at the end of the day. I was sitting there laughing to myself as something he said because he was just going so hard in the paint. And then he's making people think. Like he literally is making people reevaluate this, okay? I mean, you should have heard the conversations they were having in the cafeteria when we went to the first break. I wanted to come out here and start reporting then, how you doing? But I couldn't because we only had like 15 minutes. And they said if you don't get back in time, you're gonna be locked out because it's so packed. And they don't want any disruptions or any interruptions during the closing arguments. So he even talked about when Cassie came to Kim Porter's funeral. Remember how Cassie said she was upset because at the funeral, Diddy said Kim Porter was his soulmate, and Cassie said that she had been with him 11 years, so what was that? He talked about how Cassie acted as though Diddy was the first adult relationship. He said, but Cassie was with Ryan Leslie, okay? I don't think he called Ryan's name, but he said she was in a relationship with someone who was almost 10 years her senior for 3 years. And then he said she met Diddy, and she lied and told Ryan Leslie, he said she had a whole ruse. She had a fake flyer, and she went to Miami under the ruse, he said. That's the word he used, under the ruse. That she was going there to perform, but she was really on a yacht with Diddy. And that's the first time they had sex. Well, he actually said that's the first time they made love. Alejandro, thank you, beloved, for your contribution. I appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. Marco said Diddy is a monster. You know, he just may be. But I'm telling you how his defense is defending him, whether he's a monster or not. And then some people were getting upset about how Mark Agnifilo is doing this whole thing. But like I told them, he's doing his job. You cannot be mad at this man. This is what he is being paid to do. Your defense attorney is supposed to put on the most vigorous defense for you that they possibly can. He's earning his keep is all I'm saying. But let me continue. So he said Cassie kept it gangster. She had a burner phone, okay? She had a burner phone. And then Capricorn Clark had the biggest crush on Diddy. That's what he said. She had a crush on Diddy. Remember how she said she called him Chocolate Drop? Then he went on to say that basically she said that herself. I had the biggest crush on Diddy. Then that's when he brought up the car chase and all that stuff, and then talked about the gun that wasn't there and how she just said that to save face basically with Cassie. I mean, he actually brought up some things that I didn't even really remember about Capricorn's testimony. Because if you recall, I wasn't here at the time. Okay, I was at home going by the updates that they were posting online. So some of the stuff he said about Capricorn, I had literally forgotten. Okay, I did tell you all about the mountain lions. We all laughed about that. Now, and then, and these are her exact words that he quoted. What did you tell Lauren London? I want to run away, but I'm scared of the mountain lions. She's kidnapped at gunpoint, but yet she's talking about mountain lions. I know mountain lions can be scary, but I'd be a lot more scared of a gun. She went on her own volition, and then she makes up the things about the gun. He says Diddy wanted to fight Kid Cudi. Now this is what he says. He says there was no gun. Diddy went to Kid Cudi's house, and he was waiting to fight him. He said, and Kid Cudi said he wanted to fight Diddy. And he said, I'm going to tell you what he said. He said, is this motherfucker in my house? You at my house, motherfucker? He said he went there to fight, and Kid Cudi wanted to fight. He said they wanted to duke it out. There was no guns. He said they wanted to fight John Wayne style. He said they wanted to go at it John Wayne style. Luda said, coming to the stage, chocolate drop, LOL, okay? I wish you guys could have been there with me to see this all go down. Now, with that all being said, he said, yeah, they wanted to fight. They were going to have a good old-fashioned John Wayne fight. No evidence that he had anything to do with the Porsche being blown up. He said there's no evidence. Didn't I tell y'all that? Didn't I tell you, I don't even know why they charged the arson, because they never were able to prove that Diddy had that car blown up. Even if Diddy did have the car blown up, they never had any proof to substantiate it. So I really don't know why they had that in there. But he said there's no proof, there's no fingerprints, there is no evidence. And he said, and besides, that's a coward's way out. He said Mr. Combs wasn't thinking I'm going to blow up his car because I'm mad at him. Mr. Combs was thinking I'm going to fight him over my woman. That's what he said. So then he also talked about how there were two things in Kid Cudi's car. There was a Molotov cocktail and there was a glove. And then he said they didn't show y'all the other glove. He said, and he also talked about the partial female DNA. I want y'all to pay attention. He said the DNA hit wasn't enough for them to basically conclude anything. Chocolate drop indeed, because it could never be a splash from the size of it. Good one, Maurice. And thank you, beloved, for your contribution to the channel. Peace, love, and blessings. So anyway, with that all being said, I can't stay out here too long, you guys. I got to get back in a minute. They gave us till 1:45 to get back. It's 1:30, and I have to stand in a line to get back and check in my devices. But anyway, he said the investigation about the arson, about the Porsche being blown up, it was never followed up on. He said that the officer contacted Cassie and contacted Capricorn Clark, but he never followed up on the DNA evidence. And then he said, I don't think Cassie or Capricorn Clark did it, but he never followed up on the DNA evidence. And then there was an email. There was an email about some threats that were made. The threats that have been made toward me by Sean Puffy Combs are that he is going to release 2 explicit sex tapes of me, one on Christmas Day, maybe before or after, and another one sometime after that. Also said that he will be having someone, and I didn't see the rest because they took it down too quick. But so basically, he said that I guess he was implying that that wasn't true, okay? That threatening email, that wasn't true. And then he said Cassie was not kidnapped. She was not kidnapped when she was at the hotel. When I tell you all, this is so juicy. Okay, I'm going to run so I can get back in here. I'll be back when it's all over. It's probably going to be over about 4 or 5. But anyway, you all put comments to let me know what you think. It's getting really real. It's getting really interesting. The prosecution did a good job yesterday, in my opinion. Today, the defense is really firing back, and they're getting real spicy in here. It's getting real, it's getting real hot. Okay? With that all being said, Trump or send him to the dump. She a queen for real and do a great job with her information. Thank you, Morgan. I appreciate you, beloved. I appreciate you. I'm telling you all, I am flabbergasted. Seriously. This man is given a really good cross-examination. Like I said, when I went to school, we did mock trials. And it's always supposed to be high energy and dramatic because you want to keep and capture the attention of the jurors. You want what you're saying to resonate with them. And that's exactly what he's doing. I can say that the prosecution yesterday on that aspect of it fell short because people looked like they were bored. We were bored, saying the same thing over and over. And that was smart for him to say, I'm not going to show you all the text messages. I'm not going to show you the charts. You've already seen that enough. Okay? With that all being said, I love you all to life. I'll be back. And each one teach one. That's how we grow and thrive. Do something productive, constructive, but never destructive. And always remember, beloveds, to keep the Most High first in your lives. Peace.